How do I build some patience? Even, how many of you have salespeople that work for your company? Right? Are your salespeople the most patient people that work for the company? Oh yeah, they're wired to be super patient, right? So you say to them, hey, I got great news. We're going to break into some emerging growth nations where cash flow is going to be a little slow and you're going to have to work 3 times as hard, but in the long run, we're going to be driving shareholder equity. How many of your salespeople are just going to be chomping at the bit for that opportunity? Oh yeah, right? I will just defer any payment of our mortgage until those emerging growth countries come online. But we don't think about that. We think about the excitement of being abroad. We think about the excitement of expanding to other countries. We think about the excitement of travel. You know, these are not the best basis for driving a global market strategy. We want to approach on a proactive, not reactive basis. This morning I talked about bright, shiny objects, BSO syndrome. What is bright, shiny objects in the context of developing a global market strategy? What does that even mean? Who was there this morning? Who wants to participate? Come on, there's pretzels involved here. Everyone who speaks up gets pretzels. By the cases, I think, right? What does bright, shiny object syndrome mean in the context of global marketing? Yes, way in the back. And you are? I bow to you. I bow to you. That's as well said. I'd like to get you up here, but they took all the other chairs away. Extremely well said. I can't handle another meeting where someone comes in and says, yeah, we're ready to go global. So talk to me about the BRIC nations. I said, okay, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, what do you want to know? Well, you know, Goldman Sachs and everybody on CNBC says I should be in the BRIC nations. Okay, that doesn't really sound like the basis of a global marketing strategy to me. What do you know about Brazil, Russia, China, and India? And by the way, as someone who's been to all 4 of those countries, they could not be more different. Not culturally. The only thing that I find that they share is a parallel GDP growth number, and even that, there's a lot of disparity actually between the 4. So because the phrase was coined by Goldman Sachs does not mean that the BRIC nations are the first 4 places you should be, is it? Right? I'd want to go where there's demand for my products. I'd want to go where there's less competition for my products. I'd want to go where I know there's an emerging middle class or consumer, or where I know something about the country. And I'll tell you the other misnomer, kind of the first cousin to the BRIC. And you're going to suffer from this misnomer in the next couple of days. You are heading to the UK. Great place to do business. You've got resources here from UK Trade and Investment. I mean, truly is a wonderful place, and you should be excited about your trip. But here's a little tip. Just because they dress like us or talk like us, right, does not mean that doing business in the UK is doing business the same in the States. And Canada is even worse. Canada, you know, you go up there, you think, oh my gosh, I didn't even have to barely pass customs, right? They even got baseball teams and hockey teams up here. This must be an easy place to do business until you unpeel the onion another layer, until you understand the Canadian culture. Anybody here born and raised in Canada? Anybody? Okay, or don't want to admit it, don't want to raise your hand in front of everybody, that's all right. It's not the same. It's not the same. Global market strategy is driven by one thing and one thing only. Where do you get to remove some of those fears and uncertainties? Where are you confident that the product iterations, the market consumption patterns, the holes in the marketplace, it should always be demand-based, not bright, shiny, object-based. Somewhere on this world is a country, I don't know if it exists, that has an even higher demand for pretzels than here. And that might be hard to find, right? Because, you know, those things are pretty good. And to do that market analysis, and one of the points that's been emphasized to you over and over again over the course of the day, is just how many resources you have available to you at almost no cost to figure out where those market demand patterns are. Now, then you unpeel the onion to get to some of the other aspects of developing a global market strategy. The legal issues. Let's just talk about those for 1 second before we start flipping some slides. The legal issues in many countries. Has anybody ever worked in France or Germany? Yes. And I'm surprised you're not still sitting here. And that might be hard. In Germany, it's what? 35 hours a week, 6 to 8 weeks of vacation. And by the way, yeah, extra long lunch, wine at lunch. Yeah, I'm surprised you're not still there. Plus, by the way, it's impossible to fire people. Right? Am I wrong? Impossible to fire people. So you better really like them. You set up an office in Paris, it's going to be really hard to fire anybody. And this, again, goes to not only which countries you're going to and understanding the differences between them, but how will you enter that country? A lot of our clients in parts of Europe will not set up direct business offices because they're too afraid of labor and employment laws in those countries. And there's some pretty tough labor and employment laws right in Canada. I'm going through that right now with a client who is looking to, terminate an employee, and it's been tough. So I guess my message to you, or at least it's impossible to fire people. I want you to do some self-reflection. I want you to do some self-reflection about about the resources that are available to you, about the time. Being a global entrepreneur is an amazing experience, and I wish it for every single one of you in this room. But I do not wish it for you wearing your rose-colored glasses. I do not wish it for you if you're attracted to countries because they're bright, shiny objects. Loving the food of a country is different than doing business there. Having a great vacation in a country is different than doing business there. Go into these markets for the right reasons. Don't be cheerleaded into a market. Don't be pulled into a market. Do you know how many global franchisors have failed going into a market just because somebody called? Somebody who was here, during a semester abroad, liked the product and pulled that company into the market instead of the company doing real global market research and pushing their way into a market? And it's an expensive failure. Whether you're a big company or a small company, failure is expensive. And also do some reflection on you as a person and your openness to other cultures and to diversity and to other languages. Now, it's a little bit preaching to the choir, because I believe that you would not be here today if you didn't have a commitment to that. But I want to tell you, having traveled around the world, and by the way, into a market just got started at 30. So I've really only been traveling 2 or 3 years now. And yeah, if you believe that, I got some swampland in Florida to show you too. As I traveled around the world, I had to learn. I mean, grew up in West Philadelphia. Going to New Jersey for me was a big trip. You pack a sandwich, you go over there's a whole different set of rules, right? So going abroad, I had to learn. And I had to learn not just tolerance. People use this word tolerance. Tolerance is not going to get you any business.